Hi, welcome back to the channel. Today I am evaluating Phoenix for her sociability and training ability. I will use touch and social affiliation as my assessment tools. The first step is to encourage Phoenix to follow me instead of focusing on her owner. As soon as she turns around, I offer reinforcement and immediately start training the touch behavior by placing my hand on her nose. I'll repeat this process throughout the session, allowing Phoenix to decide if she wants to participate or not. When she chooses social contact, I will condition the touch behavior. I have a limited food budget, which is a handful of treats that I have broken into tiny pieces. Therefore, I'm going to use proximity and grooming as rewards. Horses need to feel safe because they are prey animals. Movement is an integral part of horse behavior. Therefore, moving around and making my training session dynamic is more likely to yield positive results than staying in one spot. I step away and extend the lead to allow the horse to make the decision of coming into social contact with me. I will reinforce the horse's decision-making strategy and keep classically conditioning touch. As I'm getting to know Phoenix, I realize that she doesn't like to be touched much. Petting is not her favorite, so I try in different spots to see if she will respond the same. And as you can see, she's basically avoiding me. So I'm explaining to the group of students with me what is happening and why I'm testing this. I want to see if touching maybe her chest is better instead of her head, and she seems to agree with that gesture. I grabbed a brush to see if I could substitute hand motion with an inanimate object. Horses are curious animals, so when Phoenix decides to go investigate the camera in front of us, I simply step back, allow her to satisfy her curiosity. Once she decides to join me, I will continue classically conditioning the touch behavior. I dropped a few treats in this instance. Normally I wouldn't pick them up, but I am so limited on my budget that every little treat counts. It's important to remain self-aware when you're doing this kind of maneuver, especially with an unfamiliar horse. I decided to add scratching as a secondary reward to see if Phoenix was more likely to respond to my touch. Unfortunately, she got distracted by the camera and went to investigate again. Horses foot stomp for a variety of reasons, so it's important to keep the environment into consideration when you're assessing this type of behavior. I'm currently classically conditioning touch for the 10th time. Horses require multiple repetitions, therefore I'm patiently continuing the training process. Distractions from other horses are common, so when Phoenix starts to listen to her friends outside, I momentarily pause the training session and let her listen to what's happening behind the barn. Lip licking lets me know that she is thinking of something, in this case, working. I decided to reinforce her with two rewards. The first one, food, and the second one, scratches. Always be self-aware of where your feet are when you're training horses. When training with a lead, it's vital you know at all times where your rope is. This is why you see me shortening and lengthening the lead at all times. We want to make sure nobody trips over it, the horse or myself, because you could get tangled in it, and if the horse took off, that would be disastrous for both. One of my students had a question regarding the odds and ends of clicker training horses, more specifically, how to train touch. My lengthy response includes how to approach a hand to a horse. Because they're prey animals, they tend to move away from stimulus around their vision and nose. Phoenix demonstrates by moving away when I approach my hands near her eyes or her nose. She then approaches the clicker in order to get some reinforcement. But I'm not finished with my explanation. I want to demonstrate how if we bring our hand lower to the nose, the horse is less likely to react negatively, thus we can reinforce. After 13 repetitions of classically conditioning touch, I set out to ask for the behavior, allowing Phoenix enough time to respond to my cue. Unfortunately, she got distracted with other horses outside calling out to one another. Horses are herd animals, therefore they listen to the vocalizations from other horses in order to assess danger. Once Phoenix is satisfied with the outcome of the vocalization and realizes there's no danger, she responds to my cue of touch. The vocalization starts again, so I wiggle my fingers as a prompt to remind her of the cue, but I decided to touch her nose to avoid failing and reinforce. As I let Phoenix eat her treat, I position myself to ask touch once more. I adjust my hand position, allow her to problem solve, and make the decision of touching my hand before I bridge and reward her. I was very excited with her success and leaned in to scratch her when I remembered she didn't like it and moved away. I set up for another touch, but Phoenix decided to come investigate my clicker. She was also very intrigued by the smell emanating from my pocket. As it turns out, dog liver treats are very intriguing to horses. To avoid failing, I perform the touch for her and reinforce. During this setup, I move around and allow Phoenix to follow me. I ask for touch and patiently wait for it. She's still curious about the camera, so while I hold my touch cue, I wiggle my fingers, reminding her of what I expect her to do. When she complies, I reinforce. Mammals have words in common. After Phoenix eats my treat, you're going to see her move. The camera makes her feel a little bit insecure, so she's going to do a pretend sniff, do a side eye, she's going to tongue flick, look at the camera again, tongue flick a few times, and then join me for another touch, which I will reinforce. When I repositioned for the touch, Phoenix got distracted by the camera. What happened next was truly amazing. Phoenix and I started to trust one another. When Phoenix realized she was walking into me, she immediately stopped and moved back a pace. I was very pleased with her self-awareness, readjusted, and asked for another touch. My reward was larger to communicate to her that I was pleased with her self-awareness behavior. And when I offered scratches as a secondary reward, she stood there enjoying the social contact. In my opinion, there is nothing more rewarding than watching a social animal bond with a person. When you understand the implication of using the social cognitive learning theory to train animals, you realize that a secure attachment based on trust is vital to the formation of a bond between two species. When behaviorism strives to change external behaviors, the social cognitive learning theory addresses internal processes. Since Phoenix enjoyed scratches, I figured I would pull out the brush and try to use it. But Phoenix didn't agree. She was kind of spooked by it, and when I tried to approach her to brush, she actually walked away, telling me she does not want to take part in grooming at this moment. I tried again to see if this was a one-time occurrence or if her general disposition towards the grooming brush was a definite refusal. As it turns out, she didn't want to be brushed, so I reinforced touch. Here I cut a little segment out because Phoenix needed to go to the bathroom. When the person filming starts to move around Phoenix, she freezes, worried about what's going to happen next. I just stand there asking for touch and hope that Phoenix will respond shortly so I can reinforce her for her good choices. Phoenix finally decides to come over, but unfortunately she did not perform the touch. She tried a few times unsuccessfully before lowering her head into a pretend sniff. So I decided to let her move around and explore the environment. A few tongue flicks later, Phoenix is still concerned about the stimuli around us. She still refuses to touch. I tried to offer a little bit of affection. She was not into it. I tried touch again. When her ears go up, I noticed that she's listening to something else. I asked for a touch to see if I could get her attention back, but Phoenix decided to investigate the sounds coming from outside. The term for allowing an animal to make its own decision is called locus of control. Animals with locus of control form bonds faster. I go back to touching Phoenix's nose to set her up for success. I then present the cue and Phoenix performs flawlessly. I try to reinforce Phoenix with grooming behaviors using the brush. Unfortunately, she just does not like being groomed. Trust is built through little successive approximation, but so is mistrust. The little trust I had built, I have now lost because I tried to brush her and she doesn't want to. I remind my students that a reward is whatever the animal wants, not what we think the animal wants. I often see trainers forcing rewards on animals that don't want it, which hinders the relationship you're trying to build. And over time, trust stagnates. I wanted to prove a point to my students. As Phoenix eats her treat, I pull out the brush from my pocket and pretend brush her face, and she moves away. What happens is frustration. Over time, frustration can turn into aggression. Phoenix stomps her foot in disapproval, telling me I don't want to be brushed. Frustration deteriorates or breaks down behavior. Unsurprisingly, Phoenix refuses to perform the touch behavior. She exhibits displacement behaviors by walking away and investigating a random object that was already there, showcasing a lack of interest in our relationship. I'm conscious of what's happening because I'm doing this on purpose. So when Phoenix joins me, I ask for a very close-handed touch. She performs the behavior and I reinforce her. As I conduct my training sessions, I'm evaluating the number of treats in my pockets, sometimes counting them, because I want to make sure I have enough treats to end on a really positive note. 10 minutes in, I realize I don't have many treats left, reminding me which behaviors to reinforce and reward accordingly. Phoenix was once again distracted by the horses behind the barn, so I let her figure it out before I ask a touch, knowing I can reinforce 4 behaviors. While Phoenix eats her treats, the pain from my arm reminds me that I'm holding the brush under my armpit and squeezing it there, so it's time to get rid of it. At this point, we've been training for 15 minutes and Phoenix is getting tired. It's time to call the session, but I want to end on a positive note. Allowing the horse to consolidate positive outcomes increases their learning ability. I'm counting the number of treats left in my pocket, but I'm also evaluating their size. Because we're coming to the end of the session, I want to plan in my mind how much I can give her and how many times can I reward her. I let her move around, and when she settles, I move in closer to set Phoenix up for success. We'll ask for the touch and then reinforce her. Repeating this process over and over again with the animal you're working with allows them to take the information from their short-term memory and place it into their long-term memory. What is important is that we allow the animal to consolidate successful behaviors, not negative ones. Phoenix is still unhappy with the camera being too close to her, so I guide her along, answering questions at the same time, but you can see how she's a bit weary of this camera. As she's about to turn away, she foot stomps once more, communicating her disapproval of being so close to the camera. I invite her to leave the situation, ask for a touch, and she performs flawlessly, ending the session. From this point on, I will be focusing on building a trustworthy relationship by simply parallel walking with Phoenix and allowing her to explore the objects in her environment. proud of Phoenix and look forward to the future where we can train her to do all kinds of fun behaviors. She's a retired working animal because of a past injury, so we're going to keep it low profile, but this was an amazing session to get to know her. Her final reward was going back to her friends. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe and hit the little notification bell. Ciao for now.